Tonight, a traveler from deep space brushed close to our sun, and for a brief window our world felt smaller, older, closer to its own beginning. We call it 3I/ATLAS, the third known visitor from beyond our solar system, racing on a path that will never circle back. It reached perihelion around October 29th to 30th at roughly Earth-Mars distance, hidden near the sun's glare, watched mainly by space-borne eyes. No threat, only questions, and an ancient kind of wonder that softens even stubborn hearts. Let's follow the light, gently, clearly, and keep company with the truth it carries. When 3I/ATLAS touched our dawn, we woke to alerts that sounded more like invitations than alarms. The path was mapped by careful hands, and the numbers said visitor, not intruder, which changes the whole mood in the chest. Interstellar, unbound, older than our cities and probably older than our sun, this object threaded a line that our grandparents would have loved to hear around a kitchen table at 5 a.m. The word visitor matters because visitors leave us different, even if they never speak. It arrived, it glowed, it moved on, and somehow the room felt tidier after. Perihelion is a simple idea, closest to the sun, but living it is another thing. Imagine sunlight landing on ice that has slept longer than language, coaxing out gases that write a faint halo around a piece of night. Nothing supernatural, all natural, and yet the feeling is large, like hearing an old song you can't place, but your bones know the chorus. That mix, plain physics, big feeling, is where human beings do their best thinking. The numbers keep us honest. The wonder keeps us here. Most ground telescopes were poorly placed at the crucial hour. The sun sat in the way, as the sun does, and the sky near it burns too bright for our usual eyes. So the watch passed to our metal-eyed companions, solar observatories, coronagraphs, and instruments that stare into day the way sailors stare into wind. Different tools, one purpose, just read the light. It's funny how hardware designed for storms on the sun can still make time for a snowball from another star. People ask the sane question, is it safe? The answer stayed patient and calm. Closest to the sun around these dates, closest to Earth much later and still far. Millions of miles are quiet distances in space, the kind pilots like and parents understand. No threat, just a lesson. And lessons, like dawn, rarely shout. They arrive, they warm the sill, they move along. I keep remembering the small domestic signs of a morning that matters. The kettle breathing, the curtain lifting, a neighbor's light clicking on. 3I/ATLAS touched our dawn in that gentle way. It didn't demand, it invited. It didn't scare, it steadied. The kind of sky moment that trims the noise and leaves the heart tidy enough to listen. Perihelion's door opened, hearts listened. Perihelion is not a finish line, it's a doorway. On one side, cold keeps secrets. On the other, sunlight asks questions. Heat woke buried ices, stirred outflow, and, for a while, sketched a living atmosphere around an ancient core. We don't need grand claims to feel the size of that. A small world answering to a larger fire. There's a story our elders already told us, in other words. You can hear it in the way people speak softer without planning to. Did it brighten? Did it shift color? Did it shed? The honest reply is careful. Comets often flare near the sun. Some crumble, some surprise. Many simply carry on. And this one sat close to the sun in our sky, which made the critical hours hard for backyard eyes. That's not a failure. That's geometry being geometry. What matters is that instruments caught what they could, and the rest will be stitched together by patient minds who know how to tease truth from glare. So, attention turned to the watchers with better angles, spacecraft that live where heat is not a rumor, and robots near Mars that caught earlier looks as the visitor slipped by that world. I like that part. Machines scattered through our neighborhood quietly cooperating, passing along pictures like neighbors sharing flashlights in a storm. None of it noisy, all of it necessary. The modern way of building one big eye out of many small ones. The simplest facts still carry the most weight. Perihelion, late October. Distance roughly the space between Earth and Mars. Poor ground visibility at the moment. Better with time as the geometry improves. Later on, a December swing that is closer, only in the poetic sense. The mind needs these bones to hang the wonder on. Bones keep the story standing when rumor tries to lean on it. Two rhythms run together now. One is the measured beat of instruments, curves rising, spectra whispering gases, images stacked and cleaned. The other is older, the quiet that shows up when we admit we're small and find that feeling friendly, not frightening. Perihelion opened, and for a spell we listened like children with hands on warm stone. Earth watched with million quiet eyes. No single dome carried the night. Networks carried it. Astronomers in one time zone handed the watch to others, while spacecraft did the work ground scopes couldn't, staring safely into the sun's neighborhood, where glare eats ordinary sight. Earlier in the month, that near-Mars pass gave us angles no Earth-bound telescope could steal. I keep thinking how tools built for weather or solar storms made room on their shift for a traveler from elsewhere. Duty and wonder sharing the same chair. Myths tried to sneak into the room. Dangerous approach, hidden risks, all the tired, exciting words. The track said otherwise. The distances stayed friendly. The timing stayed sane. A traveler, not a threat. That matters for more than safety. It keeps the conversation clear, slower, kinder. Fear fattens numbers with shadows. Facts walk in daylight and don't flinch. In an older age, sailors slept better under such charts. I think we sleep better too. What did all those instruments see? Early frames hinted at rising activity as heat built, with some talk of color shifts and odd angles that people will argue about for a while. Argue in the good way, with data, not volume. One image can fool even a careful eye. A stack of them starts to sing a reliable tune. This is grown-up learning. No single screenshot gets to be king. Everything earns its place on the wall. I also think about the small choices that never trend. A student postpones sleep to clean noise off a frame. An amateur in one country syncs with another across an ocean to keep the gaps short. A mission planner extends a window by half an hour on a hunch barely strong enough to say out loud. None of that gets applause. All of it builds the floor we stand on. Ahead in this video, we'll open what the early chemistry whispers, whether certain ices sang louder than dust, why some images talk about unusual tail geometry, and how that quiet Mars flyby sharpened our sense of the nucleus itself. We'll also weigh the flashy claims you may have heard against the slower, sturdier measurements, and let patience have the last word. Most of all, we'll look at the human part, how meeting an older traveler can make even a crowded city feel like a small porch with a clear horizon. Stay with me as we turn that porch light up. Blue ward glow, a questioned miracle. Some frames shared by careful observers seem to lean blue, and the room filled with excited voices. It is human to love a new color in a familiar sky, to reach for words like miracle, impossible, never seen. Then the wiser habit returns. Breathe, check, compare. Cameras carry moods of their own, filters, balances, small quirks that can tilt a scene. Our eyes, too, can imagine a little when our hearts are full. The safest path is slow. Line up the pictures, ask the spectrum to speak, and let the answer arrive without raising its voice. A soft explanation sits close by. Certain gases glow in ways that our tools can catch near the blue end, while ordinary dust prefers warmer shades. When sunlight wakes hidden ices, those ices sing in colors we can measure, and sometimes that song leans cool. At the same time, the sun's glare bends truth toward illusion, especially when the angle is harsh. None of this is magic. All of it is patient physics. The wonder for me is that something so old can still find a new way to say hello. Remember, a single photograph can be a beautiful rumor. Add 10 more, taken with different tools, and the rumor either grows into a fact or fades into a footnote. That is the grown-up part of stargazing, trading hurry for honesty. I like how this slows the room. Shoulders drop, voices soften, pencils come out. The quiet work begins. What wavelength, what strength does it repeat? In that rhythm, the sky goes from headline to history, and history is a better teacher than headlines. I think about color the way I think about memory. Sometimes the mind paints a little brighter than it was. That is not a crime. That is the heart helping. Still, the long road home always passes through check and recheck. If the blue was true, it will survive the laundry of analysis. If it was a trick of glare or balance, the world will not love us less for saying so. Either way, we win. Clarity is a soft victory that lasts. An old enamel mug on a winter porch catches morning light and looks bluer than it did in the sink. Step closer and you see it plain. Step back and you feel it more. 3I/ATLAS may have played that same porch trick on us. And even if the final number lands somewhere modest, the feeling we had of surprise turning into care left a good mark on the day. Alerts became awe across continents. Pings began in labs and living rooms, traveling through small circles that know how to wake each other without starting a panic. Astronomers handed the baton across time zones, while quiet amateurs tuned their rigs and took the night shift. Somewhere, a teacher texted a former student, and a retired engineer pulled the cover off a scope that had been sleeping. This is how science really moves. One person nudging another person, no trumpets, just a steady kindness that says, "Here, your turn." There were noisy claims, of course. They always arrive like sparklers, bright and hungry. Yet the measured threads won the longer gaze. Patient notes, small cautions, numbers with little jackets on. The world is better when both kinds of voices appear. The loud to remind us we still feel, the quiet to remind us feeling loves a seatbelt. And across continents, that balance held. A rare grace. Excitement without losing the map. I love the domestic angles of these nights. Someone wedges a notebook under a wobbly tripod leg. Someone else folds a towel over a windowsill to keep the cold from climbing in. A grandchild asks if the visitor will knock on our door, and the answer lands gentle. "It already did, sweetheart," and we heard it. You can build a career in papers and still know that this small, homely scene is why you began. The pictures and numbers will be stitched together in the days after, but the mood that followed the alerts is already clear. Awe is a social feeling. It passes by touch. A line of people looking up together counts for more than a single genius looking alone. The sky gives us reasons to sit shoulder to shoulder, and suddenly the world feels less sharp around the edges. That, too, is a measurement, even if no one writes it down. There is a globe on my desk with thin threads of travel marked in pencil. Tonight, I would draw a softer map. Quiet rooms connected by invisible lines, like lights winking across a sea. The alerts did their job, then stepped aside. What remained was simpler and older. People paying attention together, which is one of the finest things we know how to do. The sun tested our wonder. The sun keeps a bright fence that ground telescopes rarely cross, and perihelion pushed us right up against it. That glare is not a villain. It is a boundary, a reminder that some views require different eyes. Coronagraphs, orbiting sentinels, and instruments built to live near daylight took the post, while we on the ground waited our turn. Waiting is not empty. It is the room in which patience grows. And patience is the price of the clearest truths. Heat makes and unmakes comets. Warmth wakes the frozen breath and turns it into a halo, but warmth also tests the glue that holds the ancient crumbs together. Some travelers flare and survive, Some fracture and scatter like a memory that can't hold shape. Our visitor felt that same test and kept going, at least through the window we could watch. The test, I think, was also ours. Could we let nature speak at her tempo without trying to add a drumbeat? Jets can turn on like tiny geysers, tilting a comet's path by whispers, not shouts. Rotation ties those whispers into patterns, and sunlight writes and erases them by the hour. All of this sounds complicated until you sit with it. Then it feels like the most ordinary story. Breath meeting warmth, turning into motion. We don't need to be clever to respect it. We only need to be honest and a little slow. The strongest part of wonder is not the gasp, it's the quiet that follows. Numbers appear, then questions, then better numbers. We learned long ago that strong claims wear out quickly without a strong spine. The sun, bright and merciless, taught that lesson once more. It burned away the easy words and left the good ones. Small, careful, repeatable. That's not less romantic. It's more durable. A kettle on evening flame sounds loud in a silent house. Then the house learns its rhythm and relaxes around it. Our wonder felt like that, no longer startled, just steady. In that stillness, the sun stopped being an obstacle and turned back into a companion that made our seeing possible. 3I/ATLAS wrote in living light. Light is a language, and this traveler spoke it fluently. Every photon carried a clue about ice, dust, speed, and the way old materials wake under a younger star. Spectra broke the glow into syllables, curves traced the rise and rest of its breath. No single sentence told the whole story, but together they made a diary entry from another sky. Reading it asked for humility, not degrees. The light preferred listeners to performers. Tail shapes told their own quiet jokes. Seen from one angle, a straight brushstroke, from another, a wider fan, from yet another, a strange backward sweep that geometry can play when the Earth and Sun and Traveler line up just so. People called that an anti-tale, which sounds dramatic, but often it is simply perspective playing cards with the calendar. The charm here is that both poetry and math are welcome. Each keeps the other honest. The coma, the soft atmosphere around the core, wandered with the wind that streams from the sun. Dust lagged, gases rushed, and the solar breeze pressed and combed the picture until it looked less like a painting and more like a river delta. None of this required fantasy. The real world is already wild enough when you really look. A small body, a big light, and a neighborhood full of force. That is plenty of story for one night. I like how the curve of brightness over days reads like a pulse. You can feel the visitor's heart in those numbers. A rise as warmth grows, a leveling when supply and sunlight meet, maybe a flutter if a pocket opens deeper than expected. This is medical work for a patient we cannot touch. We place our stethoscope on the glow and listen. It is strangely intimate and oddly tender. Some postcards arrive with smudged ink and a corner bent, and those flaws make them precious. 3I/ATLAS sent such a postcard in light. Not everything is legible, not every mark is certain. But the message is clear enough to keep. A traveler was here. It breathed in our star. It kept moving, and it left a small warmth in the room it never entered. Every telescope became one eye. Coordination turned many instruments into a single gaze. Space-borne coronagraphs guarded the hot edge, while ground scopes prepared for the cooler windows that follow. Small backyard rigs filled the gaps the big domes cannot care for, simply because big machines move slower, and small ones can turn on a dime. This is a choir, not a solo. And choirs carry notes farther than any one voice can manage. Data lived several lives, first raw and noisy, then cleaned and stacked, then compared across continents like recipes traded at a long table. The amateur frames proved bold and quick, the professional ones proved deep and steady. Neither would be enough alone. Together, they felt like two hands washing each other, each making the other better. That is the quiet miracle of shared work. Different colors of light brought different news. Some bands told us about gases waking, others sketched the dust. A few instruments listened for the sun's wind sculpting the scene. We don't need to memorize the alphabet to feel the sense of it. All these letters spelled the same sentence. The visitor was alive to light, changed by it, and yet carried itself with a certain old dignity that did not crumble at the first touch. There is kindness in open notebooks. Teams released plots. Amateurs posted frames. People asked tidy questions and got tidy answers. Not everyone agreed, and that was fine. Gentle disagreement is one of the ways truth finds its center. The main thing is that we built a shared floor and stood on it together. The higher parts of understanding come easier when the floor is level. Imagine a single eyelid blinking over a world. That is how the night felt. Blinks in Chile, blink in Spain, blink in Hawaii, blink in orbit, and somehow the intervals filled the gaps until the picture held. We did not outsmart the sky. We simply refused to look away. In that refusal, many small lights behaved like one steady eye. Where fear ended, curiosity began. Rumors love a dark hallway. They arrive full of breath, saying danger, collision, end. Then the numbers light the switch, and the hallway shows itself. A simple corridor, a visitor passing by the far door, not even pausing for a drink. Distance matters. Angles matter. Time matters. And all three said the same thing here. Beautiful and harmless. That is not boring. That is merciful. Once the fear thinned, the better questions had room to sit down. Where did this traveler begin? What kind of nursery throws a small piece of snow and stone this far? How many such pieces wander the great spaces between the stars, and how often do they find a warm sun to write their names beside? These questions feel like friendly dogs. They follow without barking, simply keeping you company. Somewhere out there, a star flung this bit of old material during a season of rough building, planets stirring, gravity arguing, collisions teaching shape. Our visitor is a letter from that season, carried for ages through cold so quiet we can barely imagine it. To touch our sun, even briefly, is to leave a fingerprint we can read. And reading it, we learn not only about that other home, but about our own. Because family stories rhyme. Interstellar travelers may look like our local comets at first glance, but their deeper tune can differ. The mix of gases, the way they answer heat, the little kicks in their path when jets turn on, each detail points back toward the house they left. No drama required. Just careful ears and a willingness to listen longer than comfort prefers. That is how strangers become less strange. A window opened, not to fear, but to a wider window. I turned down the volume on the late news, cracked the real window, and let the night air explain itself. Somewhere between the kettle and the cool air, curiosity pulled a chair close. It did not ask for attention. It simply stayed, and the room felt right again. Perihelion fire. Human stillness rose. The phrase sounds bold, but the feeling was plain. The sun burned as it always does, and in that steadiness a small traveler met the line where cold ends and waking begins. Our part required very little noise. A few keys clicked, a few exposures rolled, a few hearts considered how old light can feel new again. That quiet, earned, not forced, was the best of the night. I picture the rooms, a desk lamp, a cup cooling, a list with times crossed off. Screens carry curves that only make sense after the third look, and someone whispers the numbers under their breath until they sound like a lullaby. This is not the glamour version of space. It is better. It is the home version, where science wears house shoes and still does excellent work. On the ground, visibility waits for geometry to turn friendly. As days move, the visitor steps away from the sun's bright shoulder and into the darker margin where small scopes can play. That is when neighborhoods join the campaign. A back porch here, a schoolyard there, a farmer's edge of field a town away. You can feel the world getting ready to look together, which might be the best part of any sky story. Logs were written with honest hands. Times, angles, exposures, tiny comments that will help some other person next season. The discipline looks dry to outsiders, but it holds a sweetness. It says, "I was here. This is what I saw. It might help you." That small, generous habit is one of the reasons the sky keeps trusting us with more. The fire belonged to the sun, the stillness belonged to us. Together, they made a good picture. Like a hearth in a quiet house, the heat did the talking, and the people did the listening. In that balance, the night learned our names and, for a moment, we learned its Pilgrim Comet, Pilgrim Hearts answered. Pilgrims travel with purpose, even if the purpose is only to keep moving. 3 I/ATLAS carried a long silence across great dark miles, and then, near our sun, spoke in light we could understand. The word interstellar can feel cold, but under a kettle's steam it turns friendly, like a neighbor from far away who still knows how to laugh at the right time. We answered in the ways we know, pointing instruments, sharing notes, making room at the table for data and doubt. Pilgrimage, it turns out, is also a human habit. A pilgrim brings offerings, sometimes small, sometimes hidden until the right doorway appears. This traveler's gifts were simple: a change in brightness, a tail stroking sunlight, clues about ancient ice that does not live in our family of worlds. None of it loud, all of it honest. You could feel the room lean forward without anyone telling it to. Maybe we recognized a piece of ourselves, a wish to approach warmth without losing who we are in the fire. Pilgrims often move by older maps. Gravity and time wrote this route long before we drew our first star on paper. Even its near-Mars passage felt like a bead on an old rosary, one touch among many, counted quietly, remembered later. We'll mark the dates, measure the light, compare this visitor to the others we've met, and let those comparisons make us braver about the next encounter. Courage grows when stories rhyme, even softly. Every pilgrimage has companions you never meet. The student stacking frames in a silent lab, the retiree aligning a tripod by hand, the mission engineer watching a telemetry line like it's a sleeping child's breath. We don't send a single hero to greet the sky. We send a community and call it science. In that company, errors are caught, myths grow thin, and the truth gets a clean coat before it goes out in public. I keep a small bowl of river stones on my desk. Each one took a long road to become this smooth. This comet felt like that, edges carried across ages, softened by time, not broken by it. We answered with our own smoothing. Rough fears sanded down into questions, and questions polished into patient listening. That's a fair exchange between travelers. The impossible knocked. We listened. Impossible is a word we say when our map is older than the ground. Some early frames and excited notes threw that word around, and the room brightened with it. Then the tools cleared their throats, and the grown-up rhythm returned. We tested the claims, checked the angles, weighed the colors against the calm voice of spectra. What stayed after that washing was better than a miracle. It was a measurement we could trust, and trust is what carries knowledge forward across seasons. Listening is not passive. It has muscles. We flexed them by comparing instruments, inviting quiet dissent, and returning to the same scene with sharper eyes. A report that glowed too brightly lost its extra paint. A cautious note gained weight as other pieces agreed. This is not cynicism. It is care. The sky deserves care. The word impossible shrank to its proper size, and in that shrinking real wonder had room to breathe. There's a small thrill in watching a bold headline settle into a steady paragraph. It feels like a ship easing into harbor after a windy crossing. The ropes take the strain, the deck stops tilting, people stand straighter. That's how the data felt after a few rounds of cleaning. Still exciting, now reliable. We may not frame posters from such nights, yet these are the nights that help children years from now ask finer questions with fewer stumbles. A good habit formed here. We let patience walk first. Instead of racing to brand the event, we checked what the sun's glare could be hiding, where geometry might be teasing, which filters could be flattering. Listening protected us from our own eagerness. It also protected the story, so it can be told again without apology. That is worth more than a splashy word that fades by morning. Sometimes the most useful miracle is restraint. We listened until the claims fit the facts, and then we kept listening a little longer. In that extra minute lies the part of science that feels like character, quiet, steady, faithful to what is, not just to what thrills. The knock faded, the lesson stayed. Across night, we followed the light. Light travels straight, and yet it twists our hearts into shapes we didn't know we still had. We followed, not like hunters chasing a prize, but like old friends walking a familiar road made new by weather. Each pass of the comet near the sun laid another thin thread for us to trace. The threads crossed in beautiful ways. One from Chile, one from orbit, one from a backyard that smelled like rain, until the picture held its own weight. Following requires rest as much as motion. Teams slept in shifts. Amateurs traded time around kitchen tables and work shifts. Alarms were set for dark hours that make the best coffee. These small logistics are not glamorous, but they are the spine. You could sense the shared heartbeat in the timing. No gaps too long, no window wasted out of pride. It felt like a stitched quilt, every square different, the whole warmer together. We let the light tell us where to stand in our minds. Was the tale ordinary or playing tricks? Was the color a song from gas or a smudge from instrument mood? Did the curve of brightness breathe like something intact or flutter like something breaking? None of these questions demanded shouting. They liked soft voices and pencils. In that softness, surprising answers came forward like shy guests who finally accept a chair. Not every turn rewarded us. Some frames said, "Try again," and we did. Some predictions aged poorly by morning, and we forgave them. That practice of missing and returning is part of the craft, like planing a board until the surface says yes. We followed because following is who we are when we remember. Not to conquer, just to understand enough to be grateful. At some hour that doesn't show on a calendar, a plot line steadied and the room exhaled. It wasn't triumph, it was alignment. The numbers agreed with the picture, and the picture agreed with the story the sun wrote on ancient ice. That kind of agreement doesn't throw confetti, it nods. And the nod means, keep going. 3 I/ATLAS. Past and wonder stayed here. Visitors leave, that is part of the deal. Yet the feeling that led us to the door does not always follow them out. After perihelion, as the geometry softened and our ground eyes prepared for better nights, something had already settled in the house. A quieter TV, a slower spoon in the cup, a willingness to look out the same window twice. Wonder, once invited, does not hurry away. We often treat sky events like fireworks, bright, brief, done. This one felt more like a candle on the table after guests head home. The room is the same, but your voice drops a half step, and a few small truths sit closer than usual. A harmless traveler showed us how old materials greet new warmth. We learned the edges of our tools and the reach of our patience. These are not fireworks. They are furniture. Parents and grandparents found new stories to slip between weather and chores. Not rumors, stories. A wanderer from another place came by our son. We watched without fear. We learned without rushing. Children hear the rhythm before the details, and the rhythm here was kind. Kind rhythms are seeds. They root in small minds and grow into calmer questions later. That's not quaint, that's strategic in the best human way. In the weeks after, the sky kept its appointments without needing to be dramatic. Morning walkers noticed a cooler breeze. Night workers recognized the exact tone of streetlights after midnight. Someone fixed a squeak in a window to hear the crickets better. Wonder changes the way we hear ordinary sounds. It is a quiet tool, but it is a tool. It makes daily life less dull and more chosen. The comet moved on, and our calendars filled with other responsibilities. Yet a thread remained, thin as fishing line, tying us to the open. You can't see it most days. You can feel it when the kettle sings. The thread says, "Look up once, even briefly." And in that single glance, the visitor returns without needing to return.